A nuclear reactor completely neglected and left without maintenance. A strong earthquake recently struck nearby, cracking the core, and it is now beginning to melt down. City residents are fleeing, people enter shelters, and the government tries to hide this disaster from the world while simultaneously trying to solve it rapidly. Will they succeed? That is what we will learn in today's video, so let's go. The film starts in a city in South Korea. We are currently with a young man named Oppa. Oppa's nephew Min comes to wake him from sleep. For your information, Min's father, Oppa's brother, died some time ago. Anyway, Oppa wakes up and exits the room he was sleeping in. We discover he currently lives with his mother in the restaurant she manages. Also living there is Ioni, who is Min's mother and Oppa's sister-in-law, whose husband died recently, as we mentioned. Oppa now spends time with his friends, including a close acquaintance named Gil. We learn Oppa, Gil, and their friends all work at the nuclear power plant located in their city. Most residents, in fact, work at this plant. Afterward, Oppa's fiancée, Yeon, arrives at the spot and greets Oppa. Oppa and his friends then board the bus that takes them to the plant where they are employed. On the road, they are surprised by a group of people holding demonstrations and blocking the way. We learn these people are protesting because they demand the closure of the nuclear plant, as they view it as extremely harmful to the environment in their entire city. However, the demonstrations eventually end, and Oppa, Gil, and their friends finally reach the plant. At the plant, Gil meets his father, who scolds him for being late for work, but Gil ignores him and heads inside with Oppa and the others. After work, Oppa meets his fiancée, Yeon, and tells her he no longer wants to work at the nuclear plant. He actually wants to travel to America to find work there. But Yeon completely rejects this idea, telling Oppa she has no one but him, and he can't just leave her. Oppa assures her he will think about it and decide whether to travel or not. Afterward, Oppa goes home and talks with his mother, letting her know he wants to quit his job at the nuclear plant and move to America for work. However, Oppa's mother also completely rejects this idea. This upsets Oppa, but he doesn't say anything to his mother, and the discussion passes. Meanwhile, we see the young president of South Korea, Jong. We learn Jong received a message from the nuclear plant director, Park. In this report, Park informs Jong that the plant situation is dangerous. It needs major maintenance, has many problems, and nobody cares, which could cause a major catastrophe. This frustrates Jong, who knows nothing about this, so he decides to meet with the Prime Minister the next day to find a solution and understand why he receives no reports about the plant. During this time, somewhere else, we see Park, the plant director, sitting with an engineer who is his friend, talking. We learn Park is worried about the plant because it could cause a massive nuclear radiation leak and a disaster. Furthermore, Park is frustrated that his superiors aren't letting him manage the plant correctly. However, Park receives a message confirming his report reached President Yang. This pleases Park, giving him hope for change. The next day, Jong meets with the Prime Minister. We observe the Prime Minister is highly experienced and effectively controls President Yang. Meanwhile, Park goes to work at the nuclear plant. There, he meets a newly appointed director who informs him he is no longer employed. Frustrated, Park takes his things and leaves. As Park walks away, a sudden earthquake strikes, hitting the nuclear plant. Terrified, Park immediately returns. He learns from the new director that the quake caused a major crack in the nuclear generator's valve. Radiation and temperature are soaring, and they are struggling to find a solution. Park insists they must begin the venting process immediately to prevent the generator from melting and causing a giant nuclear explosion. He urges haste, but the new director refuses. He knows very well that this action, it will cause many problems with the media, so he decides to keep silent about the issue before starting the venting process, hoping the generator will stabilize on its own. Since this is impossible, Park is frantic, not knowing what to do. News reaches President Jong. The Prime Minister tells Jong they must keep quiet and prevent the city's residents from noticing, hoping to contain the scandal. However, Jong flatly rejects this and orders the immediate evacuation of the city. We see all the city's residents, including Oppa's mother, Yeoni, and young Min, leaving to head to a shelter in the city. At the same moment, Oppa, Gil, and all the workers are at the plant. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs because the nuclear generator melted due to the lack of venting. This marks the beginning of the true catastrophe. We return to Appa, Gil, and their fellow workers. The explosion hit them hard, and almost all of them are buried under rubble. Appa gets up, mostly fine. He finds his friend Gil alive, though somewhat injured. Gil's father arrives, takes him, and heads to the hospital. Appa's fiancée, Yeon, arrives at the scene, naturally wanting to take Appa and leave. But Appa tells her he must help the people here and asks her to go protect his mother, Yeoni, and Min. Yeon agrees, says goodbye to Appa, and leaves. Appa then returns to the plant to save his remaining friends. However, the heavy radiation exposure makes Appa severely ill. He collapses unconscious and is taken to the hospital. At the hospital, the situation is terrible, as everyone is sick from massive radiation exposure. We switch to the shelter where Yeon, Yeoni, Appa's mother, and Min are gathered with many others. They find the army has trapped them inside, hoping to prevent the news of the reactor explosion from spreading globally. Soon the news breaks, and everyone tries to escape the city to avoid radiation. Appa's mother, Yeoni, Min, and Yeon leave the shelter and board a bus with others, attempting to flee. Back at the generator, Park discovers the new director ordered the firemen to extinguish the generator using only the water in their trucks, forbidding the use of seawater. This absolutely infuriates Park, so he immediately goes to the director and demands they use seawater to extinguish the generator, arguing it will be much easier. However, the new director completely refuses because seawater will permanently destroy the generator, making it impossible to restart. Park argues that the generator has already exploded and is ruined anyway. The important thing is saving the situation, but the director refuses and enforces his decision. This leaves Park feeling helpless and frustrated, so he exits the generator area and sits alone, unsure what to do. At this time, Yang is with his wife, who tells him he must be the one to manage the crisis and save the people, not the Prime Minister. This highly motivates Yang. The first thing he does is reappoint Park as the director of the plant, giving him the authority to do what is necessary to contain the crisis. Yang then goes to the Prime Minister and all the officials, informing them that he will manage the crisis from this moment on and solve the problem they face. Yang tells everyone that anyone who objects can leave and resign. Naturally, everyone fears Yang's words and simply agrees. Afterward, we see Park instructing the firefighters to use seawater to extinguish the reactor and reduce the radiation levels. They succeed, and the process starts working, even if only slightly. After a short time, Park manages to enter the core itself and locate the cracked valve causing the crisis. Park contacts Zhang and informs him that he found the problem's source, but he needs a large team of about 25 people to enter the core, which will expose them to massive radiation, meaning they will die shortly thereafter. Yang is distraught but decides he must act. He immediately holds a conference, announcing he needs volunteers for this dangerous task inside the generator, clearly stating that all who enter will unfortunately die soon due to radiation. He makes it clear that volunteering is their free choice. At the hospital, Appa, Gil, Gil's father, and the other workers hear the conference. Since they have all been exposed to radiation already, they decide to volunteer to complete the mission with Park, even if it means death. Park arrives quickly at the hospital and briefs Appa, Gil, and the rest. Without delay, Park takes everyone, including Appa, Gil, and Gil's father, into the generator to seal the cracked valve. They succeed initially, which thrills everyone, believing the radiation crisis is over. People who were fleeing the city, like Appa's mother, Yeoni, and Yeon, start returning. However, the crack widens again, and the repair fails. People panic and flee once more. Appa then reveals a new plan to fix the valve, but the plan requires destroying a section of the generator, and the person who sets the explosives will die instantly. Appa decides to sacrifice himself and carry out the mission. Before starting, Appa goes on a live broadcast. His mother, Yeon, Yeoni, Min, and everyone else watch as he bids his family and the world farewell. He then plants the explosives, destroys that part of the generator, which solves the cooling problem, and stabilizes the reactor. The radiation crisis is finally over. Not all endings are happy, my friend. In the process, Appa and many other workers die, sacrificing themselves so the city's residents can live. Because of their great sacrifices, Yang appears on television and personally thanks every one of them live. With this bittersweet point, the problem is solved, and everyone lives thanks to Opa and those who were with him. The movie ends there, my friend. I hope you enjoyed it. Until we meet for a new movie, all I can say is goodbye.